Nevertheless, they were not obedient, and spoke against him. They devised for themselves vain thoughts, and proposed to themselves wicked frauds. They even declared that the Most High does not exist, and they ignored his ways. They scorned his law and denied his covenants. They have been unfaithful to his statutes, and have not performed his works. In verses 22 through 24, the angel takes a stark turn, shifting the focus away from the promise of divine deliverance for God's chosen of the Most High, and instead addressing those who have rejected the Almighty's ways. The angel declares, "Nevertheless, they were not obedient, and spoke against him. They devised for themselves vain thoughts, and proposed to themselves wicked frauds. They even declared that the Most High does not exist, and they ignored his ways." This scathing indictment paints a troubling picture of those who have willfully turned away from the Almighty and his divine statutes. The language used, vain thoughts, wicked frauds, and the outright denial of the Most High's existence, suggests a profound spiritual and moral deterioration among those who have chosen to reject the covenant and spurn the Almighty's laws. The angel further elaborates, stating that these individuals scorned his law and denied his covenants. They have been unfaithful to his statutes and have not performed his works. This condemnation underscores the stark divide between the faithful among God's chosen and those who have actively rebelled against the divine order. By including this sobering message, the passage serves as a stark warning to the reader, emphasizing that the trials and tribulations experienced by the Most High's chosen are not arbitrary, but rather a consequence of the broader spiritual and moral decay that has infected the world. The angel's words challenge the reader to maintain steadfast faith and obedience, lest they risk falling into the same spiritual ruin as those who have rejected the Almighty. This portion of the text serves as a critical counterpoint to the earlier promises of that is the reason, Ezra, that empty things are for the empty, and full things are for the full. Therefore, Ezra, empty things are for the empty, and full things are for the full. This succinct statement encapsulates a profound theological principle that the angel is imparting to Ezra. The contrast between empty things and full things suggests a fundamental distinction between those who are spiritually lacking or deficient, and those who have been filled or made complete through their devotion and obedience to the Almighty. The implication is that the empty things of the earthly realm, the trials, tribulations, and hardships that have been the focus of the angel's discourse, are the rightful portion of those who have not fully embraced the ways of the Most High. In contrast, the full things, the divine blessings, eternal rewards, and revelations of the greater world, are reserved for those who have been spiritually nourished and made complete through their steadfast faith and righteous living. This verse serves as a sobering reminder that the difficulties and challenges faced by God's chosen are not arbitrary, but rather a reflection of the spiritual state of those who have not aligned themselves with the divine plan. The empty will receive the empty things, while the full, those who have been filled with the Almighty's grace and wisdom, will be granted access to the abundance of the greater world. By framing the contrast in such stark terms, the passage challenges the reader to consider their own spiritual condition and to strive towards the attainment of the full things that have been promised to the faithful. It underscores the notion that the trials and tribulations endured by God's chosen are not merely obstacles to be overcome, but rather opportunities for spiritual growth and the ultimate receipt of divine blessings. For indeed the time will come when the signs that I have foretold to you will come to pass, that the city that now is not seen shall appear, and the land that now is hidden shall be disclosed. In this verse, the angel continues to unveil the prophetic vision that he has been imparting to Ezra. He declares, "For behold, the time will come when the signs which I have foretold to you will come to pass, that the city which now is not seen shall appear, and the land which now is hidden shall be disclosed." The implication is that there exists a divine heavenly realm, represented by the metaphor of the city and the land, that is currently concealed from mortal eyes. However, the angel assures Ezra that the time will come when the signs and revelations he has foretold will come to pass, and this hidden celestial realm will be unveiled and made manifest. This prophecy serves to reinforce the central theological framework that has been woven throughout the chapter. The idea that the trials and tribulations experienced by God's chosen people are not in vain, but rather a necessary precursor to the eventual revelation of the greater world and the divine blessings that await the faithful. The language of things being not seen and hidden suggests a spiritual veil or barrier that currently obscures the true nature of reality. But the angel's declaration that these hidden realms shall appear and be disclosed implies a profound, transformative event that will lift this veil and grant the chosen of the Most High access to the divine, eternal realm that has been concealed from their view. By offering this vivid prophetic vision, the passage continues to challenge the reader to expand their understanding of the divine plan, inviting them to contemplate the possibility of a reality that transcends the confines of the earthly experience and the current, limited understanding of the world. Everyone who has been delivered from the evils that have foretold shall see my wonders. The angel continues to expound upon the future deliverance and redemption that awaits God's chosen of the Most High. He states, "And it shall be that when all the inhabitants of the earth hear the sound of its coming, they shall tremble and be afraid." This verse vividly depicts the profound impact that the divine intervention will have, not just on God's chosen, but on all those who dwell in the earthly realm. The description of the inhabitants of the earth tremble and be afraid at the mere sound of its coming suggests a cataclysmic, earth-shaking event that will shatter the status quo and usher in a new era. The language used here conveys a sense of overwhelming power and authority, one that will command the attention and respect of all who experience it. This stands in stark contrast to the trials and tribulations that God's chosen have endured throughout the present world, further emphasizing the magnitude of the divine deliverance that is to come. By highlighting the universal impact of this future event, the passage reinforces the idea that the challenges faced by the Most High's chosen are not isolated struggles, but rather part of a larger spiritual narrative that encompasses all of humanity. The trembling and fear experienced by all the inhabitants of the earth suggests that the divine intervention will not only redeem God's chosen, but will also hold profound implications for the world at large. This verse serves to build anticipation and expectation within the reader, inviting them to look beyond the immediate hardships of the present and towards the transformative power of the divine deliverance that is yet to come. The vivid imagery and language used in this passage continue to underscore the central theological themes of the chapter: the necessity of enduring earthly trials in order to receive the eternal rewards and blessings that await the faithful. "For my son the Messiah shall be revealed with those who are with him, and those who remain shall rejoice 400 years. After those years my son the Messiah shall die, and all who draw human breath. Then the world shall be turned back to primeval silence for 7 days, as it was at the first beginnings, so that no one shall be left." In verse 28, the angel provides a profound and deeply significant revelation regarding the role of the Messiah in the future redemption of God's chosen people. He declares, "For my son the Messiah shall be revealed with those who are with him, and those who remain shall rejoice 400 years." This verse offers a glimpse into the pivotal moment when the long-awaited Messiah will make his appearance, not alone, but with those who are with him. The implication is that the Messiah will be accompanied by a select group of the Most High's faithful, who will be granted the profound privilege of bearing witness to this transformative event. The angel's specific mention of the Messiah as "my son" further underscores the divine nature of this figure, who is intimately connected to the Almighty himself. This messianic revelation serves to reinforce the central theological framework of the passage, that the trials and tribulations endured by God's chosen are part of a larger, divinely orchestrated plan that will ultimately culminate in the arrival of the Anointed One. The phrase 400 years indicates a long but finite period of rejoicing under the Messiah's rule. This specific duration suggests an era of peace and prosperity, which links the book of Daniel to the infinite and eternal nature of the kingdoms described therein. The prophecy further reveals the Messiah's death, which introduces the promised new covenant, leading to the renewal of the Israelite kingdom ruled by 144,000 Israelite men under Christ, along with all the disciples and servants of the Messiah. Symbolism and context of 400 years. In biblical literature, long periods such as 40 years or 400 years often symbolize extended eras of significance, such as testing, judgment, or blessing. For example, the Israelites spent 400 years in Egypt, Genesis 15:13. Here, the 400 years symbolizes a significant yet finite duration of blessing and joy under the Messiah. This finite period does not diminish the Messiah's eternal nature. Instead, it reflects a particular phase within God's broader redemptive plan, which includes the Messiah's sacrificial death, a precursor to the eternal kingdom. Eternal kingdoms in the Book of Daniel. The Book of Daniel presents a contrasting vision of God's kingdom, one that is eternal and unending. Key verses from Daniel emphasize this. Daniel 2:44. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Daniel 7:18. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever and ever. Daniel 7:27. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Their kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. The phrase 400 years indicates a long but finite period of rejoicing under the Messiah's rule. This specific duration suggests an era of peace and prosperity, which links the book of Daniel to the infinite and eternal nature of the kingdoms described therein. The prophecy further reveals the Messiah's death, which introduces the promised new covenant, leading to the renewal of the Israelite kingdom ruled by 144,000 Israelite men under Christ, along with all the disciples and servants of the Messiah. After 7 days, the world that is not yet awake shall be roused, and that which is corruptible shall perish. In Seth Esdras 7:31, the phrase 7 days carries significant symbolism, often associated with completeness or perfection in biblical literature. This symbolism stems from the creation narrative in Genesis, where God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, marking the completion of creation. In this context, the 7 days mentioned in 2 Esdras likely symbolize the completion of a divine cycle or period, indicating that a significant transformation or divine intervention will occur afterward. The verse states, "After 7 days, the world that is not yet awake shall be roused, and that which is corruptible shall perish." This suggests a spiritual awakening or enlightenment that will take place after the 7 days, where the world, previously in a state of slumber or ignorance, will become aware and responsive to divine truths. This awakening can also symbolize a resurrection or a new phase of existence, where the dormant or dead are brought back to life or awareness. Furthermore, the phrase, "that which is corruptible shall perish," indicates the purging of corruption and mortality, signifying a transition from a corruptible, mortal state to an incorruptible, eternal state. It implies the purification and renewal of the world and its inhabitants. In the context of eschatology, this passage points towards the end times and the final judgment. The 7 days represent the last phase before the fulfillment of God's ultimate plan for the chosen Israelites, culminating in divine judgment that leads to the destruction of the corruptible and the establishment of a new, purified order. This symbolic use of 7 days reinforces themes of divine completeness, judgment, and the ultimate fulfillment of God's redemptive plan.